Unscripted, unshackled, uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for more mature audiences only.
It's Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Hello and welcome to Miguel and Holly Uncensored. This is our off-air podcast that we do 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Make sure to listen to our other podcasts like the Miguel and Holly Full Show podcast, Queen City Confessions, or Blown Off. You can get it on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. We have a guest that is coming on here shortly. They are a nationally syndicated TV talk show host.
Emmy winner,
reality star.
That was going to be my point.
They have a very long resume of things they've done in Hollywood, and they're coming on to our Little Low podcast to say hi.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we'll talk to them here in just a couple of minutes. But before we get started, Holly, how are you doing?
Pretty good. Can't really complain on a Wednesday. I mean, it is Wednesday, right? Yes, it is. So I'm doing good. Maya's sick. She's home from school today. She was sick yesterday. I think it just, going back to school, you just get sick, I think. Oftentimes. One of my kid does. So we're dealing with that. But otherwise, good. I had a psychiatrist appointment this morning. So that was good too.
love that.
So
Mental
I'm going to be working on my depression, which I have noted in a different podcast. So I'll be keeping you up with that, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. I have a new medication on the way.
Ketamine?
No.
There's
I
a new
was looking
medication in
into
the
it.
workroom.
I was looking into ketamine. And that's why I felt like I was stalled because I had too many options almost. And I was sort of in denial about the fact that like maybe it's just sometimes. And this is what I told my lady today is I was like, for a really long time, I was like, well, it's just PMDD. So it's just going to be bad before my period. And then I like lighten up and then it's fine. But it was like the ups and downs of it were more downs than there were ups. And so it was even persisting outside of that. So I was like, I need to do this. And obviously I'm a big proponent of TMS therapy. And in full disclosure, I was endorsing NeuroSpa TMS at the time. So my TMS therapy was comped as part of the benefit of me endorsing the thing. And so it can be expensive if your insurance doesn't cover it. Ketamine, I was looking into that because I've had some good friends that have nothing but amazing things to say about obviously doctor administered ketamine therapy for depression.
Right. Not
the we going out to have a fun time on the weekend.
Hazy Sunday.
This comes out somebody's bottom of their purse. No. I mean, or I don't even know. I don't do that kind of thing. So I don't know, but this would have been obviously doctor administered. I was looking at those two. I think I would say alternate options to meds. But ultimately for me, I think meds might be the best way to go at this point in my life and also is the most cost effective. And then I had to do a deep dive on which meds. And so blah, 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 blah. It's medicine. And so once I kind of get started on it and I'm more prepared to talk about it, I can talk more about it.
Well, I think this is a perfect transition to our guest who I believe is available because this person who we just sort of teased that will be coming on, that's a TV talk show Titan now with an Emmy Award.
TV talk show Titan. I love that.
But from what I'm reading, from what they sent over, is that in season 3 of their talk show that's about to debut in a couple of weeks, they are embracing the mess of life. And I feel like that is a perfect sort of slogan for what we do on our podcast.
Yes, it is.
So I think he will be coming on here in just a second. Once they start talking. This is what happens when it's live. It's like,
but no, it is a good tie-in though, because obviously we're very mental health focused as well.
100%.
And have always been. And so it can feel too, for me, who has been on this journey of mental health, a little embarrassing, even though it shouldn't be.
Right.
To be like, okay, well, I was on top of the world and now I find myself back into a hole. Like,
but isn't that like sort of the whole mental health journey that no one is ever like, I'm good 100% of the time after you've been through the process?
It's a constant battle to keep up with it. Especially if you struggle with it throughout your life or it is hereditary or what?
He's here.
Oh, okay.
You
Let me
ready?
shut up. Let me shut up.
Holly, shut up.
I'm like, Holly, hold on. We'll
I
come
know.
back to
I was just trying to tap dance.
it. Well, I would like to welcome. He is starting season 3 of his show, Emmy award-winning KARAMO. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I came in on the conversation. I want to know what's hereditary. What else? Holly, what were you talking about? I need to know.
It's a tie-in, but I was talking about my own mental health, and I had a psychiatry appointment this morning, and I was talking about it's important to stay up on it because it's not like you can do one thing and then suddenly be good for the rest of your life. Because I was saying that, like, in the pandemic, I found this treatment that really helped me feel great. So it can feel a little embarrassing, even though it shouldn't. It can feel a little embarrassing to be like the mental health guru that has to come back here 4 years later and be like, so I'm actually not doing very good. And what I was saying is whether you deal with it over the course of your lifetime or it's hereditary, some of your mental health challenges, whether it's like a diagnosed thing or like a bipolar disorder or depression or whatever, you got to stay on top of it because it's not just like a one and done.
Amen. That's what I try to tell people all the time. Like whether it's on, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm nosy, so that's why I was asking.
I will overshare. I will fully
me
overshare.
too. I'll always overshare. But I will tell you, that's one of the things that I'm constantly trying to share on Queer Eye, but also on my daytime talk show is like, this is a continuous journey. Like you always have to do this. You know, when you're talking about bipolar, one of the things that I've never talked about is that my second son, my adopted son, is bipolar. And I spent all the time that I have full custody of him, helping him stay on medication. And then when he got to a certain age where he had to make the decision on his own, because he was doing well, he stopped his medication. And then we saw things
my
go
partner's
down.
bipolar, by the way, so I get it.
Yes. So you get it. And things started spiraling. And as a father, it was so sad to see because I was like, you were doing well because you had support. There was continuous help for you. But now you're not getting that support. And so it's like, you got to stay on top of it. You got to make sure that you're always understanding that this is a journey, not a destination. You're going to be on this journey for the rest of your life. And that is one thing that I'm trying to preach.
You
I love
also
that.
have to have a very supportive doctor. I went to a doctor appointment yesterday and I was telling him how like, hey, it's been quite the year. I can tell that around this time is when it starts. And he was like, okay, well, let's get the physical started. And I was like, so I'll be looking for a new one rather soon. But yes.
Yes.
True.
Oh
Like,
my
there's
gosh.
all these hurdles to get over just to keep up with your mental health sometimes. And I appreciate you sharing that about your son. Like I said, my fiance has bipolar disorder. So I have made myself a very knowledgeable person about the disorder. And so for me, a lot of times, because like his disorder is, I don't know, I'm trying so hard to help him out. Obviously mine can take a back seat. And I was like, I'm fine, until suddenly, like, it's like the frog in the pot of water. I'm like, maybe I'm not fine actually.
Yeah.
And now I'm embarrassed because I've slacked off about it and I have to talk about it again. But here we are. We're gonna talk about it. So
Here we are. I'm with you. I'm the same way. We together in this.
very lovely.
KARAMO, I am curious because we were sort of like reading, prepping for your interview and just looking at all of the accolades and the accomplishments. And then, of course, I got nosy and started going through your Instagram and your partner's Instagram. And I'm like, obviously on social media and what you present, it's like, man, he's made it. He went from like the real world to like having his own Emmy award-winning talk show.
Yeah.
But like, how do you sort of unplug and sort of refill that tank up because of all the things you have going on in your life?
A lot of stuff.
Miguel, first of all, great question. And your skin is goddamn gorgeous. My gosh.
Thank you.
My gosh, you look good. But one of the things I say for me is I constantly have to refill because like I do my journey, and the reason I'm here, I feel like I'm put on this earth, is to give. I feel like that has been the reason I've been blessed with the things I've been blessed with. And this is from real world to everything I've been through. Like I try to make sure that every time I go through something, I share it so that someone else knows that they can grow, they can be better. I give the advice. But like I do have to, I give a lot. So it's constantly like one of those things where I do have to like hold space for myself to say like I can't. Like I'm big on boundaries. I'm big on it. Like this show should be called KARAMO Boundaries, because I don't mind telling somebody that tomorrow, like, listen, you got me till 2:00 and I'm done, or like whatever. And I mean, like I set those boundaries, but I also make sure there's contingencies. Like even as a parent, like when my kids were going through things, I was quick to make people know that like even though parenting is a 24-hour, 7 days a week job, I still needed time for me. And I would tell my kids, hey, kids, there's a boundary right now where dad needs some time alone. This is the person who's going to be there to support you while dad is taking this time. And when they were younger, they didn't get it. They were like, what? Why is dad locked in the room for these 2 hours? And why do I have to talk to grandma? Now as adults, they're like, oh, dad, thanks for teaching us that, because they're learning how to prioritize themselves. And so I do that a lot. And so, and also social media, to your question about that, like I hate social media. Like, unfortunately, I'm 43 and I grew up in that middle age where I don't like it. And so, but I love it. I'll scroll for 40 hours, but I don't want to post nothing. And so,
Same,
it's,
same.
yeah, it's like the same thing. Like I love the look, but I don't want to post. And
Right.
so I always tell people, don't look at my life as happy or joyful or sad or not from my social media, because you're getting what somebody else posted or what when I had some energy I posted.
So what has that feeling felt like when you were, as I was reading through your bio and like looking through, you started on The Real World and you like did, gigs here on this, internet show or on this show or this correspondent show. And then when you got the call to host your own show, what was that like? What went through your head?
I cried like a big baby, and I understood why I went through all the things I've been through. It's like sort of like what Molly was talking about. I understood. Like there were so many times, like I grew up really poor. I've talked about this. My parents are not from this country. I told people that I was gay when I was 15. And this is like, again, my age, this is 94, 95. Like, this is not what we know today of like how people supported it. And also being a teen parent, like these things, I just always felt like, why is this my life? Like, why do I constantly feel like I'm constantly struggling? Why do I always feel like there's a hurdle I have to get over? And now I realize those were all, and this is what happened when I got the show. I was like, oh, I went through these hurdles so that now I have this national platform where when somebody sits in front of me and they're like, oh, I'm a teen parent. I'm like, got you. I understand. Oh, I don't know how to co-parent. I got you. I understand. Oh, my family doesn't understand me or love me or respect my boundaries or this. Oh, I got it. I understand because I've been through it. But then I also have the training to put with it to say, here's a personal level. I get it, but now we can also help you through. And so that's what I felt. And that's what made me emotional, because I'm like, I can't believe I get to do this day in and day out as a job. Just see people be better than I found them. It just it blows my mind.
That is cool. I mean, and it feels so fulfilling, I'm imagining. But also, is that how you thought the trajectory would go? Like, is that the trajectory that you wanted, or is that the trajectory that happened and you're so grateful it did? Was there some other plan?
No, this was the plan. When I was a kid, I used to rush home and I wanted to be a talk show host. That was literally the only thing I ever dreamed of.
Yep.
But because my family wasn't from this country, that wasn't a real thing. You had to go to school, you had to get a real job. And so TV wasn't a real job. And then secondly, I didn't have any models. Like, yeah, I saw Montel, but like I was a little effeminate little gay black boy. So I was like, well, are they gonna let me be on, daytime TV? Like I say girl a lot on TV. And I'm and so I'm just like, I just look back and like being now the first openly gay black man to have a daytime talk show ever. I'm like, now somebody else is going to be able to see it and say, oh, it's possible. But at the moment, I didn't know if it was possible. I wanted it. I thought about it every day. And I'm excited I'm here because, and I'm not going nowhere. We got to season 3, and trust me, we're going to be all right.
Yes.
So, Karamo, you exude confidence. And, I've been kind of dealing with this as well. I'm trying to destroy or kill my inner saboteur, the imposter syndrome. How do you tackle yours if you even still have it?
Well, I don't think it's about tackling it in the sense of because I think this is something that we all feel. I mean, I walk on my talk show every day with having a season 3 and having these things. And I think sometimes that imposter syndrome is a reminder that you are where you are, that you're supposed to be there. And it's also a reminder that there's also room for growth. I think sometimes reframing, imposter syndrome, you've achieved it. You already know you've achieved it. So when you're in these spaces, you can remind yourself you achieved it. I do that to myself. But also I say that, what is it about in this space that I need to heal from that's going to remind me to continue to be better and to keep growing? And so I use these moments that make me feel uncomfortable to reframe and say, what do I need to learn about myself to be better right now? So what do you think when you have imposter syndrome, when you need to learn those moments? What do you think? What do you think you need to heal from? Because it's coming from somewhere. And so instead of looking at it as like, oh, there's a negative right now, look at it as like, oh, my nervous system's reminding me to be better and do something and to grow and to do something more about myself.
Like,
Yeah,
look at the past,
What do you think?
past wound, maybe.
Yeah, look at it. So what do you think? It's about reframing for me. Reframing. Give it a shot. I'm telling you,
Change your
reframing.
perspective.
And
Yeah,
that is
perspective.
why he has a talk show right there, because he knows what the hell he's talking about. KARAMO, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And your season 3 of your show debuts when?
It just premieres Monday, September 16th. I'm excited. And
Love it.
it's nationwide.
Awesome. Thank you so very much for spending some time with us. And we can't wait to see season 3.
Yes, thank you
Thank you so much. Have a good one now.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, how awesome.
He's so cool.
My
So
goodness.
cool, so personable. And I was like, oh no, we only had like 10 minutes with him. We gotta wrap this up. But so gracious too.
I think it's so interesting that there's no one way to work in the entertainment industry.
Right.
And there's no one way. And I so identified, and I wish we had more time, because when he was like, because I used to do the same thing. Like I used to say when I was growing up, if I look at my journal, I wanted to be 4 things. One of them was a talk show host. But I also at that time was always like, well, outside of Montel, there were no other black men and there was no gay people at all outside of Ellen. But her talk show didn't happen until, later on in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So during that time, I was just like, man, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that because no one looks like me. And so having someone like him, who's some little black boy in Nebraska, can look at him. Or are there any black people in Nebraska? In Georgia,
there are some.
There are some. Don't
erase
some
them.
black person in Nebraska is really upset with you right now.
I'm sure they're listening to this podcast.
Well, if they knew, they'd
Run
be
the numbers.
upset for discounting them. So, yes.
But it's so cool to have someone like that who has worked so hard, and like I can't imagine. That's why I'd love to get into like the nitty gritty of like, when he was like a correspondent on Access Hollywood and he was doing, Huffington Post Live, and I'm like, how are you keeping all those plates spinning with life and being a teen parent and still trying to not fall back and say, well, let me get a real job because my big break will never happen. How do you keep yourself going? So those are the things that I find so interesting about people like his story.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you are obsessed with Oprah? Because you felt like you could see yourself in her?
Yeah, I think it was when because my mom used to always watch Oprah, and I would watch it, but she was just always like there, when I got home from school. But it wasn't until I think my grandmother gave me her book, her autobiography back in the day, and because I didn't know Oprah's story and how she literally came from dirt, from like nothing.
Yeah.
And so I remember, as I'm reading this book in my grandmother's 1-bedroom, 55 plus community, and all of my clothes were in a bin and I was sleeping on the couch bed for most of high school. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it is possible. Maybe it is possible for someone like me, because when you're, especially in the 90s, when you didn't have like the internet to like read people's backgrounds and to, see how do you become famous, or how do you have a talk show, or how do you be on the radio, or how do you, right? There was no access to information like that.
Yeah.
And so you just like, well, I guess that's just not for me because I don't know anybody. I don't have any rich parents. I don't know. And so when you read someone like her story, or you hear KARAMO's story, and you're like, oh, so that can happen.
Right.
That is a possibility. So
I
that's
think
why I
just telling kids, all kids, that they can do something is so important. Because I think about that a lot, where it's like, I felt like I just couldn't do things. And I don't know. I actually need to sit with that because it kind of just came up. I don't want to mark that down. I want to think about it because I'm not really fully prepared to speak on that at this moment because I haven't thought about it before. But I never felt like, oh, that could be me in any careers. like there were things I wanted. Like my mom told me I should be a dentist, and I was like, yeah, that's fun. Or like whatever. But like, especially when I wrote that one time I wanted to be an entertainer, I didn't even know what specific jobs. I just wanted to entertain people, and I didn't understand how I could do that. Like I just didn't that's why I try to tell anytime we know how we used to talk to schools, like or Maya or whatever, like you can do things, like you can have these jobs, like you can do them. You can learn how to do them. I think it was just so foreign to me growing up. I mean, like growing up, even into college, like then I found out like, oh wait, I'm going to get a job at some point. It should be this. That's why like in high school, even I was just like, it was so vague and ethereal to me, like being a grown up and having a job. I didn't understand how people got them. Like I was just and maybe that's part of what makes me such like a really insufferable know-it-all now. And like I do feel like I need to know all this information because I just didn't know a lot, and I didn't even think that I could ask about it. That I know why I couldn't ask, but like just know that you can. Pass it on to your kids.
Did you look up to anybody growing up? Like for me, every Saturday we had Sábado Gigante, and Don Francisco. It was like a game show, talk show. Like he talked to Selena, Christina Aguilera, like all the artists back in the day, and he's known as like one of the greats of all time, in the Latin world.
Okay.
And yeah, so I always wanted to be that. I wanted to be like a game show host because of him. And then of course there was Elvis Duran, who like I'll never forget being in the car when he said like, yeah, my boyfriend. And I was like, he's gay? This old man is gay.
What?
So I feel like those were the people, I would look up to. Did you have anybody growing up that you were like, oh my God, I kind of want to be like her?
No, there
Or
was
just
one
him?
woman in Cleveland radio,
Mhm.
and I will always just cite her as my like radio inspiration because it sounds really good. And also in an unconventional way, I guess, but it was Leanne Summers. She was so young. I did not realize how young this woman was when she was doing mornings with Johnny D and Leanne on it was Jammin' 92.3,
Mhm.
like when I would get up in middle school. And I would listen to them and I would like the show and I would think it was funny. I'm telling you, and I don't understand, like it never crossed my mind that I could do that. It just didn't cross my mind.
Where did that come from? You're like your mother? And she was like, no, get your
I don't
degree.
know. I don't know.
Maybe that's maybe that's a common female experience.
I think because
I'm
that was
wondering if it is, because in
Right.
some form, like it always was nestled in my head that I would eventually get married and have kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, but when my mom and dad were divorcing, my mom was on this whole tract, which thank goodness it was a little bit, it was like good, but also not so good. Of course, at that time she was like, you always need to be able to support yourself. Your job comes first. If you get married, that's a bonus. And of course she was telling me this from a very wounded place.
Mhm.
And it was scary for me as like a 10-year-old to hear this.
Yeah.
So that's what stuck with me. But also I grew up with all of these women who were married with kids. And so it didn't cross my mind. Like none of them had good careers. Like nobody worked. My mom, my Auntie Pearl, they didn't work. Their main job was mom.
Mhm.
And so I didn't have anybody in my life that was a working woman. Like, and so my little space was just, I guess it was modeled to me that like, oh, that's what women do.
Mhm.
Even though I heard Leanne Summers on the radio, and I will always cite her as my radio inspiration because she is. I listened to her and I loved it. I just didn't know that I could do that. I just didn't know that I could do anything.
Well, I think that also is, how we always say that when we first started doing like just, Miguel and Holly without Kramer, and we were like, what are the differences between us? I think that's also a little bit of a personality thing where like I have a little bit of a delusion of like, like you
Save
like you kind of have to have a little bit of a delusion to be first in this industry at all, but then to like, just to believe that we can do things or that like we can command whatever.
You do have to be a little delusional.
Right,
That's
and-
why so many people with personality disorders actually end up in positions of power.
Absolutely.
Delusional.
Right, because you have to believe that you can
What you're
make
selling.
the impossible happen, and that what you're selling is you're selling you. And so
Yeah.
you have to have some sort of delusionment that like you can get all these people and you can get all these things to work in your favor to get in a position of entertainment or power or be president or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And so I feel like you're more of a realistic person
Right.
And so that's why you were just like, well, that's just not possible. Like, whereas
I
I
remember
was
when
just
you
like,
told me that we could make like a certain threshold of money.
yeah,
And I was like, that's never literally crossed my mind. Like, I was like, that's absurd.
right. And I
And-
was like, no, it'll happen.
And I was just like, that's okay. You're the more delusional one. But I
Mhm.
have a little delusion too. Otherwise, how would I
Right.
do this?
Like you have to have it to be in this field in
You do.
radio.
And I do credit my mom with that because she did, like, her job was mom. Like, she loved it. She just wanted to be a mom. She ended up having to work in insurance later on to support herself. But she hated that. So I grew up with her just hating work. And but she loved us kids. She really did. You know, sometimes not the best practices, as a lot of boomer parents had some bad practices, but you could tell that she loved us for sure. And so, especially what I felt is she would tell the story about how she had 2 miscarriages before me, and, like, you could just tell from the way she talked about having gotten pregnant and then given birth to me, and it wasn't necessarily me, like, "Hello, me," but, like, the fact that she had this child, I was
A
so
miracle.
wished for and wanted, which is
Mhm.
a beautiful thing to hear as a child, by the way. That, I think, gave me some of the delulu that like, look how much this woman wished for me. Like, she thinks I hung the moon. So that's where part of my delusion comes from. So she's responsible for both parts, actually, like the realist and the pragmatic, and also I'm a Capricorn. So there's that. But also, like, I'm a little bit, Pisces moon, a little emotional, little delulu, because I really was like, this gonna sound so stupid, but my birthday being January 1st, and I knew how much my mom had longed for me, I was like, "I'm destined for greatness."
Mhm.
Who says that? It's a little delusional,
To be
but
fair, the world counts down.
the
to your
whole
day.
world is
Mhm.
waiting to celebrate my day. Like, you're welcome. So, like, when I said I wanted to be an entertainer, I also knew that I felt good about making other people feel good. And that's where that came from. And so it just took a while to tie it in because, like, you and Kramer were like, oh, well, we just knew off the bat we wanted to be radio hosts. And I was like, well, not me. I didn't even know this was something I could do. Until suddenly it was like literally put in front of my face that's like, do you want to work on a radio station, college student? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's fun. That'll help me be famous and fun. Yeah, no, that's fun. Anyway, so yeah, you do have to be a little delusional, and I definitely have some delusion.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't know like how to make it happen, and there was a little part of me that wanted to move to like I have a feeling that if I had not have met Kramer um in college, or if I had gone to like a different university
Mm.
and didn't meet him and sort of end up in Savannah with Clear Channel and then just going to Panama City and this route that life has taken me, I really was either like I want to go try to do radio, or I want to just move to LA and just
Mm.
see what'll happen.
What if you had moved to LA?
I think about that sometimes of like if I had just been like, because by this point I understood, well, I did not understand how credit cards worked. I understood how to use them and how to pay
Oh,
them
Oh,
off
no,
with
that's
my
right.
those are 2 different things.
absolutely. So I probably would have racked up even more credit card debt if I would have done it because I had zero money.
How much did you rack up during your time?
Oh my gosh. I mean, my credit limits were like, 2,000, 3,000. So it was
Okay.
like nothing crazy back then.
Yeah.
But I
But the
think
interest piles up.
it does. I
Yeah.
think I probably had 4 credit cards by the time I graduated college.
Mhm.
So there was probably about 10,000 worth.
No, mine was around 445.
Yeah.
4,500.
Yeah, it was a lot. It took a
Dang,
minute.
girl.
That's why my credit score was damaged
Damaged.
until about 2016. So it took about 8 years to get my shit under control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it
Makes
finally
sense.
was like, then I could buy my house.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I was like, I remember there was 3 options I had. It was either go to Savannah to work part-time or to,
Mhm.
get that job I was doing there. Or intern for the Kid Craddock show in Dallas, because I remember I was talking with them and I was like, is there any money available for anything because they were like, you can come intern because it was early 2000s.
They would let anybody intern because it was free.
Because there wasn't because I was like, well, I'll be graduating in the spring of 2007. But they were
that's
like,
right.
you can come and work, but there ain't no money
For free.
And I was like, okay, well, there's that. Or I could go to LA and see what happens. But then that's where me at this point being in college and like learning a little bit of finances and like just learning how things worked to where it wasn't like I was 18 and just being like, I drove out to LA with $20 in my clothes. And I was like, but where you going to sleep that first night?
Right.
Where you go eat? And so
thank
figure it
goodness
out.
some of that pragmatism came in, truly.
Yeah. Right.
Because you
But then I wonder if
that.
I would have done that. Like if I would have.
You sleep in your car.
Right. And then but then I'm like, you wake up and then what?
Go to an interview.
Start the
I don't
day,
know.
girl. As for a paper application.
Yes.
Them's were the days.
Right.
It all out.
Oh.
So those are the things that sort of stop me because I'd be like, all right, if I can't see how to get to step 2, then I'm just going to wake up there and be like, what?
Well, and all that is from your upbringing of knowing what it's like to be very poor.
Right. Right.
And so you had some fear.
Absolutely. Because by this point I had jobs in college. Right. And so I knew what it was like to have a checking account. I knew what it was like to be able to go to Applebee's and not be stressed out. It wasn't often. And so by this point I was like, well, if I have like no money saved up, how like if you put in that paper application, you got to wait a day or two for them to say yes or no.
Right.
And so then then those are the things that started to pop up in my head. And I'm like, I don't know. Because by this point, I didn't know anybody that lived out there to even be like, hey, can I sleep on your couch for like a week or two?
Right.
That may have changed the game if I would have known at least 1 or 2 people at the time, but I didn't. So, but hey, if we ever got fired from radio and like this was it, because, these radio jobs are drying up.
Girl, we've been saying that for pretty much since we've gotten into radio.
Right. But now
it just really is true.
Now
it is true.
Yeah.
So,
it's
you got that hard drive still or?
I need to get one.
Get the tapes.
I'm about
to say hard drive.
It's giving newspaper industry right now. Like every time you turn around, there's another radio company slashing jobs here and there. And it's just like, there ain't gonna be nobody left.
I know, because it had just been mismanaged for so long.
Yeah.
I do think iHeart has really done a good job of trying to pivot.
Right.
But they're trying to,
we still need to have commercials.
Well, you're trying to steer an ocean liner. It's like you can pivot, but it takes a long time for that ship to turn.
Yeah.
It's just we are seeing our culture change so much in the way that we consume everything.
Everything.
And it's not just us. The TV, I was listening to a podcast recently where they were saying like TV networks, sort of like radio, they've just given up on reaching people under the age of like 25. So that's why now you don't see like a Friends or a Seinfeld with like 20 somethings. You keep seeing more procedural dramas from Dick Wolf of, Law and Order in Chicago.
With 40
PD.
and 50-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right. You don't see any new young stars being broken out on network TV anymore.
There's no WB.
No, they're not reaching those people. They're Jenna Ortega, Wednesday, Netflix, So they're trying to figure it out, and even on their upfronts. And that's where the big TV networks go to New York in the spring, and they go to the big advertisers like Procter & Gamble, and they go, hey, here's our fall slate of shows. Spend your money with us for advertising. Before, they'd be like, last year we had 60 million people watching King of Queens, or ER, whatever. Now they're like, well, we don't really look at ratings and the amount of people. We're looking at the engagement on social and the quality of the stars that we're bringing back, because that's also declining, just like radio. But it's just people are listening differently. So all these industries are having to figure out what the hell we gonna do.
What the hell we gonna do?
And so for us, it's this. Miguel and Holly Uncensored. This is it for us right now.
We should charge for this.
Well, let me tell you a little secret. If you ever turn on Hits 96.1 and you don't hear us, just know in a week or two, we'll be like, Miguel and Holly Uncensored is back. $5.99 a month.
$5.99 a month. No, I will be
Twitch.
out here. Like, I will tell you right up front, up and down, I am not a salesperson, but my ass will be over here meeting with someone in my best suit and be like, would you like to spend money on our platform? We
best
talk
little
about
pantsuit.
literally everything. I have a pantsuit and a skirt suit.
Yes.
I only have two, but I will wear one of the two of them to this business.
A little suitcase.
Yes, I will have a briefcase. It would have nothing in it. Maybe nope, not even a laptop, because I will just be a pen.
But it's just, I mean, even like when my car, and I'm sure this is for your cars too, like my car the radio doesn't even come on. Like as soon as I get in my car, it connects straight to my phone. And so whatever podcast
Apple
I was just
CarPlay.
listening, Apple
I
CarPlay.
have to work at it because I don't always want to listen to my phone. Like, y'all, this is to go back to the beginning. This is how I know I'm depressed. I'm like, I don't want to listen to any, like, I can't figure out what music I want to listen to. So, no.
Oh, that's so real.
Mm.
I spend a lot of my days in silence. Doom scrolling, obviously, but
So
silence.
what I will do is if I put on the radio, and it just takes a quick 2 clicks. Like I have a button that flips between FM radio, AM radio, which I'm like, AM radio. I don't even know how that's hanging out still.
Barely.
But it goes FM radio, AM radio, and then Apple CarPlay. So I oftentimes, unless I find myself in a very up mood, have it on FM so that I can just let that decision making be with someone else. And I'll just flip between whatever's on Tampa Bay radio. And sometimes I get so depressed because I'm like, I'm so sick of this fucking music. And sometimes like I just have such an issue because I'm like, God, these programmers. However, I'm not a music director. I never claim to know what's better than anybody else, but sometimes I'm just sick of it. But when I am in a better mood and Apple CarPlay does pop up, that's when I'll be like, okay, I have a couple of playlists. Or Apple does, your favorites, and they refresh it every Tuesday. And I love that because I'm like, I didn't have to pick it, and you're going to play stuff that I already like.
Yeah.
So I like that. But I at no point want to sit down with a new music playlist and try to figure out what I like that's new, because I'm like, I don't have this. I don't have the bandwidth to listen to new stuff right now. So just give me what I like, but put it in a nice little shuffle. But I do listen to the radio. So
it's hard for me to really, like, a lot of friends will send me like, oh my God, you have to listen to this artist, or it'll be like a K-pop artist or whatever. And
I don't want
it's not, I'm sure I would like it. I'm pretty sure I would like it.
Probably.
I just don't want to.
Well,
discover.
after you turn, you're a little young for this, but after you turn the age of 35, you actively stop liking new music. And that's what happens to CHR stations, is that the demo ages out, because
That's how I
it's
feel
been
now.
studied that, especially at age 35, and it can happen beforehand, so whatever, but especially at age 35, that's when we are less open to new music. So the fact that me, for example, and Miguel can get into new music is keeping us relevant to the demo. So I appreciate that we're on a CHR where I'm like, okay. Let me just check out Chapel Roan. It's time. And then I'll be like, oh, actually, I really do like this. And then, like, I like it now. And it takes me a minute, but I'm not going by myself to look. And I'm not getting recommendations from people because I'm like, how many songs do I need to listen to get it? So radio still does help me know what I should know to stay relevant. So I like radio for that reason. I still believe in radio.
100%.
There is something special when your song comes on that you didn't have to play it. It just came on and you're like, we're all loving it right now. I don't know. I still love that. So anyway.
It's just a process of figuring out what it looks like. It's just not, I feel like what we do and how we do it won't exist in 10 years. Miguel and Holly will be a brand. I just don't know if it'll be coming through a big transmitter that goes all throughout the Carolinas.
On the radio.
It'll be probably just digital because it's changing so much. But, as long as advertisers are willing to pay, and then you listening still listen to our radio shows and they can still squeeze some money out of it, it'll happen. But it just diminishes year by year. And then, but also here's what helps is that our company looks at everything. They look at the big picture, where in the past they would be like, oh, you got shitty ratings, you're out. Now they're like, okay, your streaming numbers are up, but your ratings are down, but you're still bringing in money. So you're good. People like what you do. But if it like everything was down, than to be like, well, what you're putting out, your product is not good.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the good thing about our company is that they understand things are changing.
And that's why we tell you to listen on the iHeartRadio app.
Yeah. So
Oh, that's right.
listen to us live on the radio, iHeartRadio app, or anywhere.
And we have podcasts that you can listen to. The full show podcast, Queen City Confessions, Blown Off, Shoot Your Shot. There's this one, which you're listening to now, the Uncensored podcast. Just thanks.
And if you'd like to advertise on our podcast, let us know too.
Okay, now it's too much.
Yeah.
Not at all, girl. They be
Anyways.
running advertisements during our show, being like, would you like to advertise on iHeartRadio? Well, would you like to advertise on Miguel and Holly Uncensored?
I'll get on Twitch, live stream,
That scares me.
I don't even know how
play
that
me
works.
watch Fortnite,
I've never been
watch me
on
play Fortnite.
Twitch. I don't. Is it something you go on? Like, why do I?
I don't even know how to set it up.
I don't even.
Like,
know
I don't
what it
even
is.
know where do I put the camera.
Is it video?
It's video and also
And
streaming the
audio.
TV. But how do I do that?
Wait, streaming the.
Wild.
All right, I gotta hit my.
Kelvin, you're the
11-year-old.
young one. You're supposed to figure all this
No,
out. You're supposed to
girl.
be able to be like, hey, Miguel, Holly, we're supposed to go to Twitch next.
I mean, we should be doing Twitch now, actually.
I know, we're late
wait,
on Twitch.
plus
I don't even know
we're
what it
late?
is.
I don't know. We would webcam the whole show, but the problem is that off air, we would still be live on camera.
And that's boring.
Not even boring. We have fun convos off air.
But we
say a
can't.
lot.
Now I was gonna say we can't. There's no way.
Yeah, there's no
because
way.
there's some stuff that we can't.
No.
Kelvin, what's your social media? People can find you.
At Kelvin Live, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. If you want the Fortnite username, my 11-year-old niece, did I tell you guys this?
No.
She was like, I love your username. It's so funny. It's Bossy Killer. I go,
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
it
It's
sure
Bossy
is.
Killer.
Mhm.
Bossy Killer.
What Maya would think
Mhm.
too.
I'll be
so.
killing them
Good.
bosses. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah, if you had me on Fortnite, let me know who you are, please.
Holly?
Yeah. Radio Holly on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, sometimes X.
Mine is at Miguel Fuller on all the social networks, and we will see you here on Friday.